Mr. Bomerski, do you have any staff recognitions this evening?
Yes, good evening. Sorry I'm not able to be there in person, but tonight I know Mrs. James is in the audience for the meeting, but I wanted to recognize our maintenance and custodial team under her leadership through all year, whether it's summer cleaning buildings, getting things ready for the school year, whether it's fall, winter, spring with regards to sports and getting fields ready and taking care of our buildings and all the grounds. But they get that added layer of having to do additional work when we get snow, and they put tons of hours in to ensure that our buildings, our parking lots, sidewalks, everything is cleared and ready to go. And so I'm just really thankful for them for all the time, energy, and effort that they put in, and feel like they need to get some additional recognition for all those extra hours to ensure that our buildings can open safely for our students and staff. So, Mrs. James, to you and on behalf of your entire team, thank you for everything you do to do such a great job taking care of our buildings and grounds.
I have a great team.
I messaged you the other day and I said I was thanking the snow gods that there wasn't more, and you said you kind of wish there would have been more. It would have made the plowing worthwhile.
Yeah.
Anything else, Mr. Bomerski?
Not at this time. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Moving on to number 3 on the agenda, is there any need before a motion, is there any need to additions or deletions for tonight's agenda? Hearing none, can I have a motion to approve the agenda for the February 24th regular board meeting? Thank you, Mr. Keener. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Director Linton. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye. 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 Opposed? Motion carries 8-0. Next, approval of the minutes. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes as presented for the regular board meeting held on February 10th and the Education Programs, Policy, Personnel, and Legal Committee meeting held on the 10th as well?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Small. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 8-0. We have no residents requesting to speak tonight. Moving on to the superintendent's report. Mr. Bomerski.
Okay, thank you and good evening again. A couple of updates I just want to share. As you know, last week, the district held the Act 34 hearing with regards to the high school project. So I want to thank everybody involved with that. Upcoming in March, we have our second round of parent-teacher conferences. So whether parents wish to schedule conferences or staff wish to reach out to parents to get those conferences scheduled, those will take place for elementary teachers and parents, March 11th, 12th, 13th. And for our secondary, grades 7 to 8 parents and teachers, that'll be Friday, March 13th. On February 13th, we had a great in-service day. I want to thank Dr. Dandridge and the entire Professional Development Committee for planning great sessions for our staff. I know there were a lot of great sessions that were offered, and continuing with our professional development plan for our staff, the 3-year plan, which has several sessions that are required for all staff, make sure we have consistent training available for all staff. I think that's an important piece. So I want to thank Dr. Dandridge and the entire PD team. He was part of planning that, and also for all the facilitators, whether it was our staff or guests that came into the district to present to our staff. All the sessions were very well received. I'd also like to acknowledge and thank Mrs. Melendez, our food service director, as well as the wellness committee for planning the wellness fair, which was again another session that staff could participate in, bringing different vendors in and giving staff the opportunity to focus on their wellness. As you know, we have Les Mis coming up, so ticket sales are currently open. And the last piece that I just want to remind everybody that as we move into really starting this week into next week, we'll be getting ready for spring sports. Hard to believe, but we have a lot of our athletic teams competing in postseason. So Mr. Landis is quite busy right now getting around to all the sports and trying to support our teams and get that information out on social media. But we are looking for the snow to go away and the warmer weather to come, and a lot more events to start happening, not only inside, but also outside. So the calendar of events is in the agenda as well as the enrollment report. And I'll take any questions that any board members have at this point.
Mr. Keener.
Mr. Bomersky, thank you for that. Since several board members were not able to attend the Act 34 hearing and those that were in attendance were not permitted to participate, can you give us a recap on what occurred and summarize some of the questions, any questions or comments that may have been asked by members, by those in attendance?
The presentation was short. There wasn't anything that we haven't heard before, and there were 0 questions or comments.
In and out in 20 minutes.
Pardon me?
We were in and out in 20 minutes.
All right,
Thank you, gentlemen.
thank you.
Anything else? All right. I have nothing for the president's report this week. Moving on to the adjunct reports, safety and security, Mrs. Eshelman.
Since we last met, the district safety and security team met on Thursday, January 29th. It was really nice. There were representatives from HEA, district administration. I was there from the board. It was a nice open dialogue, asking questions, discussion, sharing information, and kind of looking at the past, present, and future. Yeah, it was just really nice to have an open dialogue and talk through things. And I think the goal is to maybe schedule that again in the spring and do it twice a year and kind of keep that going.
Okay. Thank you.
Mrs. Eshelman.
Mr. Keener.
Would it be possible for us to get a more detailed update in executive session about any specific concerns that were raised or any
Yeah, I mean-
questions? I mean, it's always hard to give these updates in public.
Yeah, I wouldn't say there was much specific. Dr. Musser and Dr. Dandridge were both there. I know Act 44 came up, so.
Yeah, we talked in a little more depth about Act 44 and that new reporting process, and was seeking feedback from different members of the committee. We also spoke about some safety procedures that we're going to be putting in place for some of the construction projects with the fencing, the clearances, moving people around, storage, all those areas were our primary pieces of information for this meeting. We'll have a much larger, more robust conversation in the spring meeting with a much larger group. This was a smaller, I don't know, what do we have, 10 or so in that room. We'll have a much larger meeting in the spring.
Thank you.
All right. Ms. Small for the PSBA.
Yeah, so the biggest update for PSBA was I wasn't able to attend it live, but I did watch the recording of their update on the governor's proposal about the budget. I'm not going to go into a ton of detail because I know Mrs. Hall has some details in her presentation tonight, but just as a few highlights, just reminding everyone that none of this funding is guaranteed. At this point, this is just a proposal. Lots of time of negotiations set to happen. Appropriation hearings were supposed to, about education, were supposed to happen yesterday, but they were canceled due to weather. And so far as I know, there hasn't been an updated time of when that's going to happen. Just reminding all of my fellow board members that, between now and when the budget is due is a good time for us all to advocate and to share with our legislators what the impact of having any of these proposed things would have on us as a district. We are well on our way to, reaching the adequacy goal, which was set out 3 years ago, and we're hoping to achieve in a planned 7 years, but the money's not all quite there yet. And so we need to be thinking about additional forms of revenue to come in and just what that general impact is going to be on us as districts. One of the highlights came out of that session was that over the last 10 years, costs related to mandates from the state have increased $6 billion. And revenue from the state to local districts has only increased $2 billion. So those unfunded mandates are creating a $4 billion mandate gap for all of us to have to deal with. They also mentioned the cell phones in schools bill that is potentially on the horizon. PSBA is currently opposed to that bill due to their concerns about liability, lack of local control, and some requirements within the bill that would duplicate sunshine law. So if anybody has any specific questions about that recap, I'd be glad to go over any of it with you. So, thanks.
Any further questions?
All right, thank you very much. Standing committee reports, education and programs. Ms. Eshelman?
We met on Tuesday, February 10th, following the regular school board meeting. There was some secondary English and social study book adoptions for next year. We'll be approving those tonight. It's on number 12A, and that was from Kathy Dicely. We had a wonderful AI update, I think, from a team of professionals from the district, which was really nice to hear from all of them on what is going on currently in the district, kind of what they were doing based on the policy that was implemented. And then next steps, they're going to continue piloting things in the curriculum, vetting different resources, and then sharing classroom examples at a spring education committee meeting. A thing I really took away from it that I, to be honest, wasn't thinking about, and I probably should have been thinking about more, is educational AI versus commercial AI, and continuing to research that and discuss that with professionals in education and outside of education. And I want to thank some staff members. I was able to attend some of those sessions, the Professional Development Day on AI, which again was great for me to hear, not only from the presenters within our district, but our teachers, our staff. They all actually brought a lot of student concerns about AI with them too, so that was nice to hear, and just continue that dialogue, because I think we all agree that it's just going to be ever-changing, and we just have to keep up.
Great, thank you. Any questions on that? Mr. Keener?
Thank you, Mrs. Brady. I'm not sure where to bring this up, so I'll just do it now. Over the weekend, I forwarded an article over the board about some pretty sobering research that's being done around the negative impact of excessive screen time on learning. And it's something that we've talked about here. Some of the data that Dr. Dandridge has shared paints a pretty stark picture that students are losing the ability to read and think critically because of excessive screen time. And Mr. Graham provided some helpful additional context to the message that I sent out. But I would suggest that the board take a real hard look at the degree to which we are using technology and whether the degree to which we're using technology is pedagogically sound. And if we have maybe gone a little bit too far down the road of technology and fostering a culture of screen addiction among our students, and that perhaps we need to look back and say, technology certainly has a place. We need to use it. It's part of the world that we're training our students to live in. But that maybe we need to look back at, are people learning to read complex text? Can they still write in detailed analytical pieces? There's now a mandate that we could go back to teaching cursive. I think that's a cute idea. Strikes me a little bit as a Band-Aid on a broken arm, but I think it's a step in the right direction. And I would think that this board really needs to take a hard look and making sure that our curriculum is aligned with developing deep analytical thinking and writing. And I'm not sure that right now it is. I think that maybe we've gone a little bit too far down the path of technology, but that's just one person's observation.
Mr. Keener, can you be more specific? Do you mean the use of technology, like we continue to get new programs brought to us to implement? Or are you talking about the use of technology by teachers, administrators in the education? Or are you talking, where are you going with that?
Sure.
Are you talking about an
No,
iPad in the
good
classroom?
question. I apologize for not being more specific. My comments were primarily directed towards this sort of primacy of using the iPads, using screens in the classroom, as opposed to buying books, having students read complex text, write detailed analytical papers, in a grade appropriate way. But I think, to Mr. Waldemuth, your question is a good one, because maybe we're too quick to implement technological solutions from a budget perspective as well. I don't know. My question was primarily directed towards screen time in the classroom and in assignments.
I guess my question would be what do you believe is the best mechanism for this board to use to address this issue? Or is this a policy issue? Is this a curriculum issue? I guess I'm just wondering where you see this conversation taking place.
Good question.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
has ramifications for ed programs, which is why I brought it up now. It's also a policy issue. It has enormous budgetary ramifications. It frankly has buildings and grounds implications. We're designing a new high school, or designing that school in a way that is appropriate, given some of these concerns.
I'll just say that
but-
from a curriculum standpoint, it's been my observation over the last few years that we are continuing to adopt curriculum that still prizes primary text, prizes writing, just to use our ELA curriculum that we just adopted, which relies completely on actual real text that children are using, reading,
But the
comparing.
data's not bearing that out. That's the problem.
What's
the
that?
data that we're seeing shows continued significant learning loss.
Here at Hempfield, it's showing
Yes.
that?
Right, Dr. Dandridge?
I think we
that's-
haven't seen the impact of that quite yet.
Yeah,
so.
we're not going to have any kind of assessment on the program for at least 3 years worth of data. So we're, early in our implementation. We are learning how to use the programs, and I am sure we will continue to see growth in that data.
And we have, actual book text on our agenda to approve tonight as well. So I'm not saying I don't have these same concerns and, questions in my head. And that it should continue to be a question that we are asking of our administration, of our staff. I'm just not sure what the vehicle is for us as a board, except for us to continue to say, we believe in, the kinds of things that you're, saying.
Right, I agree, and it's not our job to articulate the solution. It's our job to ask the difficult questions and draw on the expertise of our faculty and administration in helping to create solutions, if we collectively believe that there's a problem. I believe that there's an issue, but I'm only one of 9.
There may be an issue and there may not be, but I believe the ship has sailed of going back to cursive and writing. If we're going to prepare students for the workplace and the future, we can't go back to where we were, whether we want to or we don't. I would also suggest that if we're going to tackle this, it needs to start with the administration pushing kids to use technology with all the programs that we've put in place and we've approved over the last few years I've been part of the board. You can't push kids to use technology. We can't approve new technology and push kids to use that while at the same time telling them, oh, we don't really want you using technology. We need you to go back to writing and using a book the way we used to back when I went through school. I just don't think that's realistic. I think there's a balance. I don't think there's a major problem. I think society might have a problem, but it's not a problem we're going to fix on this board.
Anecdotally speaking, as a parent of both an elementary school child and a high schooler, right? So 2 ends of the spectrum. What I'm seeing with my elementary schooler, who is part now of the curriculum and in that cycle where we're still collecting data to see, what the impact of that curriculum and how it's being implemented in our classrooms is. He's in 4th grade, right? My younger is in 4th grade, and really this year, physically writing with their pencils has become even more rigorous than in grades previously, okay? So he's not a complainer, my kid, but I have heard some friends who have said, man, my hand, we're doing a lot of writing in school right now, right? And, yeah, Megan's making.
I have a fourth grader too, and mine would be the complainer, and the hand, and the brain, and the thinking, and the...
It's so much work.
Mr. Hoffman is coming in and telling us we need to elaborate more in our writing in this area, and Mom, I missed a conclusion because I was just tired at the end. Great discussion, great learning opportunities.
Yeah.
Anecdotally
speaking, right? I know we cannot be speaking as two parents, but for the entire district, and our data will speak when we have more time to collect it. But as a parent of a kiddo in that elementary stage, yes, they have iPads. They do use them, but it is not their sole, and depending on the work they're doing, not even their primary source of information generation. And they are using full text. Now, to speak to the other end in the high school, yes, that iPad is the primary vehicle for turning in assignments, for completing assignments, for doing research. My particular student is a kiddo who needs to write some things out, but she knows that about herself as a learner, and so she kind of does more of a hybrid thing. So all of your points, Mr. Keener, are very well taken, and as Ms. Small said, I share some of those concerns and trying to find that balance, making sure the students in our district are having more as balanced an educational experience as we can give them, because there are many implications for not physically writing anymore. I know students, not necessarily in our district, but who go to occupational therapy because their handwriting is not where it needs to be. That shouldn't necessarily need to be the case. So, there are concerns about that, but I think it's, at this point, I'm hopeful that the work we're doing and the curriculum that we've implemented are actually keeping us on that trajectory. The other piece of this too is that we are still very much coming out of, the data that we have is very skewed to look at because we had a pandemic in the midst of data collection. And so many things changed at that point. So we're coming out of all of that, and we're kind of on the other side of that. But there was curriculum adoption at the tail end of that. So timing will tell, and I know it's kind of hard to be patient and wait for all of the things that the board has implemented and our teachers are doing every day with our students, but I'm hopeful that the board has the right choices up till now with that, and so that we will see those scores coming up and up as we get more into that.
Yeah, I think the balance is something the district's always struggled with. Accepting the technology we're preparing students for, but still building on some of those basic skills. I think Mr. Graham did a nice job in his email. And just for an example with that, so all of our testing is going to be online now. I have no more paper pencil. We've waited as a district, made that decision that we were going to continue to do paper and pencil until we were forced. Well, now everything is going to be on the iPad or on a machine. It's only right that we have kids practicing taking other major assessments so they're not going in cold. So there's a piece of internal control that the district has, but also some of that external control that we have to rise to meet, preparing them for those jobs that are tech-based. Doesn't even begin to say it. They are tech. It's a tough balance, Mr. Keener, that we continue to talk about when we talk about printing, purchasing materials, and trying to provide a balance of all that. It's a difficult line to walk.
Very good. Good conversation. Any other comments?
Just real quick, I don't want to belabor the point. I echo, I have 2 elementary students. I'm actually upset at the amount of paper they bring home. And yeah, they do a lot of handwriting. And in fact, my son is complaining about the online PSSAs because he's like, I don't like to use the keyboard. I want to write it. So there is that. I also think that, between the visits that I've done to my kids' school, and I visited Central Elementary, and, I didn't see the iPads out at all, right? So I think, to Mr. Graham's point, it's a nice, good balance. That being said, I think your concerns are very valid, and it's something we need to continue to, kind of remind the administration. Let's keep thinking, questioning, is what we're doing the best we can be doing, or is there something else that we can do to make it better, right? And I think that's a great goal to always have, is like, hey, let's step back and take a look at this and just see, are we where we want to be? Just like we are doing with the AI policy, right? Technology changes so quickly, we need to continuously reevaluate this and have the administration, give their professional opinions.
Just to clarify Dr. Musser's point, assessments, you mentioned state assessments, PSATs, SATs, AP testing, all of that is now mandatory online. There's an option to go back. We do still do internal assessments in the district on paper, depending on the needs of the teacher, but all of the state assessments, all of those other assessments that we give in one way or another are all online. There's no choice.
I think one of the pieces we'll be able to do is take this to our educational team and talk about this and bring information back to the board, and we'll kind of figure out which is the best avenue in consultation with some of the board chairs with the committee.
Ms. Eshelman, did you have something else?
Sounds like a plan. It sounds like balance.
Yeah.
I mean, you see me writing up here every board meeting because that's the way I learn, and it's also to model it for other people. It's intentional. So I think we as adults need to do our part as well, and I think our educators do a good job at that.
Okay. Very good. Let's move on to, we're still doing standing committee reports, it seems. Policy, personnel, and legal. Ms. Small.
Yeah, so up for first reading on tonight's agenda are several policies. We talked about 004 and 006. Those are the board organization policies. We added a small piece to 004 about student representation. We changed a small thing in 006 about adding district employees to public comment if they are potentially not residents. Policy 217 added some clarifications for some special situations for graduation requirements, and we had some discussion about that. And then policies 914, 917, and 918 are moving forward with no changes. So,
Very good. Thank you. All right. We are moving on to personnel action items. I need a motion to approve personnel action items number 1 through 7 as presented.
So moved.
Thank you, Director Linton. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Best. Any comments or questions? Discussion is the word I'm looking for. No? All those in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 8-0. Number 10 on the agenda is buildings and grounds action items. This is a motion to approve Hummer Turf Grass Systems revised proposal for the baseball and softball fields project. Again, this is a proposal, not a contract. Is there a motion for that?
Motion?
Is that Ms. Small?
Motion, yeah.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Best. Any discussion?
This, can someone remind me, is this already included in the budget for the high school project? Or where is this money coming from?
This is part of the high school project. The board did approve this already. We brought back the revision because of things with stormwater, and there was a request from the board to provide a breakdown of individual costs. So that's what Hummer did. So we're just bringing you back because there were some additional changes, some reductions in some areas, some increases in others. The overall cost went down. However, it is still wrapped into the high school project, Mr. Keener.
What was that, Mr. Mamersky, the last part?
It is still wrapped into the high school project.
So we can basically take the cost of the high school project and deduct $2,244,000 from that.
I believe it's through a little over 3,013,000 and change.
Okay, thank you.
Forgive me, but I didn't think that was being deducted from that high school project. I thought this was carved out as a separate item.
In the cost of the high school, the 211, and this is all, correct me if I'm wrong here, but that 211 included the 3 million line item for the baseball and softball fields.
Okay, well, that's good news.
Yeah, my thinking was, or my thought, not my thought, but I remember because in order to build the addition, we have to get rid of our baseball fields and redo. It's not like extra like the stadium.
Yeah,
That's
that's why this is the one part that's south of Kaufman that's part
That
of
must
the high school project.
Yep.
Are there any other questions on that? Good question, Sal. All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 8-0.
I'm sorry, I know, one more question. If ultimately we do not approve the high school project, then this will be rescinded, or are we going to do this regardless?
My understanding is we would not need to do it. Am I correct in that? Yep.
Is that correct, Ms. Womerski?
We would not need to do it. However, if the project is ultimately not approved and this already gets started, because this was part one of the entire project. So from a timing standpoint, it'll just depend on when everything comes into play with regards to the bids and then the subsequent acceptance or denial of those bids. But we are on a tight timeline, so if things go out to bid and it come June and we have permits and ready to go, we need to get started because of the timing. So if the board ultimately rejects the high school project, then things would be paused with regards to this to determine next steps. But
Okay,
we would have to wait and see.
so we would just be in a situation where we would have a baseball and softball field further removed from the high school.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right, making sure I'm at the right place here. We have finance action items. This is approval for finance action items B through E, 11B through 11E. Contracts that are on the agenda, the financial reports, the food service reports, and the financial transactions. Is there a motion to approve finance action items 11B through 11E?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Eshelman. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 8-0. Item 12 on the agenda is education and programs action items. A motion to approve the book adoptions as presented for the English, Warcross for Literary Analysis, and Social Studies book, The Psychology of Money for Economics in American Society.
So moved.
Thank you, Director Linton. A second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Eshelman. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 8-0. Next, we have the policy action items that Ms. Small referred to a little while ago that we discussed at the past meeting. Is there a motion to approve the first reading of board policies as presented, 004, 006, 217, 914, 917, and 918?
So moved.
Thank you, Director Linton. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Small. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 8-0. Other action items. This is a motion to approve the other action items, 14B and 14C, as presented. Items to sell and donate, and approval of a legal agreement. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Thank you, Mrs. Eshelman. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Director Linton. Any discussion?
Yeah, why are we getting rid of all these books?
The documents are listed with them that shows the ones that are either out of date or beyond usability, damage.
They look like classic works of literature. Great Expectations, Huck Finn, The Grapes of Wrath, Call of the Wild. Why are we not using these books?
So some of the books are replaced from a curricular standpoint. Some of them are older text as was shared. Generally what we do is we actually see if we can sell them. We go through a whole process to see if we can sell them. A a lot of times we end up having to discard of the books. But these are books that are no longer in need at the high school for the course changes that we made, I want to say 3 or 4 years ago.
I have a fundamental question. In the 4 years plus that I've been on the board, this is the first time a list of books for disposal or sale have come to the board. So that tells me one of two things. Either we haven't followed policy to date, we don't have a policy, or we've never taken a book off the shelf in the 4.5 years I've been on the board. It raises a lot of questions. So Dr. Musser, can you please explain to me why this is the first time I'm seeing this, and does that mean we've never taken a book off the shelves and disposed of it in the last 4.5 years I've been on the board?
Sure. No, we've had other situations where we had book disposals being voted upon. There's a whole signing process who goes through.
I don't recall ever having anything on an agenda. Did I miss that meeting?
Possibly, but yeah, we do have a process. It's not something that's common. We try to buy texts that we can either, use in other areas of the district or standing texts, but we made some major changes. And also, just to be fully transparent too, we are looking at a shift from the high school. So we're not just looking at books in storage, we're looking at all kinds of things that are in storage that if there's not value, we need to resell them now or dispose of them in preparing for that transition. But I can see if we can
Still
check
very,
some
yeah, I'm
past
still
agendas.
confused.
Yeah.
Confused after being on here when I was told that there were books that were removed, that were taken out of circulation because they hadn't been checked out in 10 years. And yet,
I
not
think you're
once did
talking-
we see those on the agenda.
I think you're talking about library books. These are curriculum materials. Yeah, library books, no, you're correct.
Okay.
These are curriculum
So
materials.
these are curriculum
Yes.
materials.
I'm sorry, I wasn't tracking your
Okay,
question.
well, all I could see was it was Franklin, and there was a room number tied to it that didn't tell me much.
Yeah, these are
So
curriculum
I
texts.
appreciate that.
Uh,
Does
that-
that also tell me that these books would still be available in the library? To follow
Those,
up on that
absolutely,
question.
those are classics.
Okay.
So, absolutely.
There were
That
no-
helps me a lot.
I mean, I can probably work a deal if you'd like a copy too.
No,
That's what I was wondering. That's what I
Because
thought.
I am having
I
a tough
read
time
all-
getting rid of some of them.
I read all of these way back in the day. I'm good.
And that's my question. Are we no longer requiring students to read? I mean, these are some of the all-time classics of American literature. Have we watered the curriculum down that much that we're not requiring students to read Huckleberry Finn, The Grapes of Wrath, Call of the Wild, Life in the Forest? I mean,
Yeah.
those are books I think everyone around this table has read.
They're great books. We are continuing to, as we shared before, to work on student engagement and some of the new text, and Warcross that we just approved is a great example of that, a book that is drawing more attention for kids and increasing engagement. So we're not seeing some of the same engagement with some of the more traditional texts. Not saying that excerpts are used or other subsections are used, but full-on books are becoming less and less.
Because we want them to read and critically think, so we're trying to,
And I'm
I think
sure-
it's important-
I have not yet read Warcross, and actually I read the synopsis, I skimmed through it.
There's copies
And
up
it was
there.
actually really interesting, and I think I might take a copy of it.
You're allowed to. There's extra copies up there.
I think it's important also to note that these are books that we're getting rid of that we're no longer requiring everyone to read. It's not saying that these books wouldn't particularly be choices that are offered to students. It's just we probably don't need enough copies to fulfill an entire classroom to be required to read Great Expectations. And
No, fair enough. So who is still required to read Great Expectations?
I'm not
Is
saying
anyone
anyone, I don't think anyone's required to read it anymore. That's the point.
For the sake of the conversation, I can talk to Mrs. Dicely. She's not here this evening, and maybe I can get some further clarification that I include in board news onto why these are no longer being readily used.
Yeah, there were notes on condition of the books too.
Yeah,
And
I
again, anecdotally.
So, yeah, some of them are just
I have-
unusable.
Yeah. I have a student who has a copy of To Kill a Mockingbird that could probably be replaced. I have a feeling some of these were in the same condition based on the notes that we were given.
No, and Mrs. Eshelman, I absolutely agree that if a book is falling apart, like the 6 boxes of outdated, damaged books, I don't know, I'm more concerned with what appears to be a wholesale evisceration of classics from our curriculum.
I wouldn't call it that. Dr. Musser
Yeah.
can follow up.
Yeah, I can follow up. I thought you'd go after the writing for college, but okay.
Pardon me?
The writing for college text.
My bigger concern is just making sure our process is consistent, and I think you answered that. It wasn't clear in here, because I went back and said, did I miss something? I assumed he was coming out of library books somewhere across the district.
No, there's
And
a-
so it wasn't, I don't think I missed it in here, but I thought maybe I did.
Nope.
But at least now I understand. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, I wasn't tracking you early.
Good. Everybody good? Good discussion again? Good clarity? All right. Did we vote on that? No, we need to vote on that. Yes. Did we have a motion and a second?
Yes.
Yes, so now we're ready to vote. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
You said that with a smirk on your face. I just want to make sure you're,
I'm sorry.
that is a true nay. Yes,
Yes.
okay. It was just the look on your face when you said it. I wanted to make
Okay.
sure I was reading you correctly. So that one is 7-1. I apologize for that, Mr. Keener. And we are at the end of our regular meeting. We will adjourn. Do we want a break, or do we want to move straight on to reconvening the Buildings and Grounds meeting? Okay. No comments strongly either way? Let's
Brief recess?
brief recess, reconvene at 6:45.
That's very quick.
Okay? Adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Director Linton. Second. Ms.
Second.
Small, I saw a hand, but I
I'm
heard
saying
it from,
aye.
Mr.
I'm
Okay,
saying
that was
aye.
an aye. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 8-0. to order for the meeting of the Buildings and Grounds Committee. Has anybody new joined us online? No one new. So still just Mr. Bremerski? Yes, and Director Linton has left, and Mr. Wagner is still not here. We have no residents' comments to address us for this meeting, so we will move on to Buildings and Grounds. Mrs. James has a presentation on the summer playground project.
Good evening. If you recall, last meeting, we talked about about 3 playgrounds within the district, and I heard you. I am moving forward with getting the RFP accomplished for that, and that will go out to bid. We're going to have surveying done of the playgrounds to see if the curbing is going to be usable, and it'll tell us the different angles of the playgrounds and so forth. So I'm moving forward with that, but I got the sense that there was still some questions regarding the playgrounds, so I wanted to come back and speak to you about those items tonight. So I tried to rearrange some of the information here to make it a little more understandable. So if you recall, I had mentioned that we can't do nothing to the playgrounds. We have to do something. The 3 playgrounds that were mentioned are East Petersburg, LIC, and Farmdale. Those playgrounds, all 3 of them are of the prototype playgrounds. They all have the rubber mulch. The rubber mulch is contained right now with a curbing. That curbing is not visible. It's so covered over, the mulch is coming out of that curbing, and that becomes a big problem. So we have to get that addressed. What has happened there is the underlayment, the fabric has torn and is coming up through that mulch, as well as the stone that's underneath that fabric is now up through the mulch, and now the stone is mixed in with the mulch. Children are throwing that mulch along with stones, I'm sure. We don't need to get into that, but it has to be addressed. In some cases, we're seeing dirt. So in order to address that, we have options that we can do to address that. The first 2 costs that you see at the top there are the amounts that are standard for all 3 of them. We have to have there's a mobilization cost, and there is a removal of the existing substance in there, so the dirt, the stone, the fabric, the mulch. So those costs we can't avoid those. The costs below there are paving costs. The paving costs come from evaluation or inspection of those 3 playgrounds and the macadam that goes with those playgrounds. So their basketball courts, their other games and so forth. We had thought initially that we would be able to just take off the top layer and be able to reuse that surface. That is not the case. Those playgrounds are not thick enough that if we were to grind off that top layer, that there would be really anything left. So we do need to have that removed, and you can see that what's reflected there in the costs of what that would be to remove that. East Petersburg Elementary does not need to be, the paving does not need to be redone, so there's no costs involved in that playground. So then we go to choices. We have the rubber mulch. If we were to go back and redo and continue to use rubber mulch, that would be the cost that you're seeing listed there. And then you have the poured in place. Mr. Keener has also asked me to look into the wooden mulch. So I did do some checking on that yesterday. What I did find out with the rubber mulch is a cost of $42,039 approximately. That what I did was I based that cost on just the cubic yard cost of what I paid for mulch in August to refresh the mulch at Centerville Elementary.
Mrs. James,
Yes.
could I just clarify? You said rubber mulch. Did you mean wood mulch just there?
I'm sorry, did I say rubber mulch?
Yeah.
Sorry, wood mulch,
Okay,
excuse
thank
me,
you.
sorry. So that is just simply the cost of the mulch. There would, of course, be labor involved in that. And again, the mobilization and the removal of the existing mulch, those things are going to need to happen regardless. But that would be the total cost plus some labor. And I said, I based that on the cost that I paid in August.
Sure, and
per
I
cubic
do
yards.
appreciate you going back, Mrs. James, and looking at that. So just to make sure I understand what you're saying, we would take that $42,000 cost and option one would go from $201,400 to $42,000.
Yeah, I have some options laid out there, but yeah,
And
go
then
ahead.
option two would go from $563,920 to $42,000, with the other costs remaining relatively the same.
Correct, yes.
So it
For
would
the
be a
42,000
savings of
plus
about
labor.
$160,000 on option one, and a savings of about $520,000 on option two.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
So what I did here was I laid out some options that we could do using and the costs involved using the rubber mulch versus the poured in place. And these are the totals that I came up with. Keeping in mind the curbing that we are having surveyed, we may have to have that cost. We may have to incur that cost. We may not have to incur that cost, or it may be a portion of that. If curbing is reusable, we will certainly reuse whatever portion of that curbing we can. So those are costs that I came up there with if we were for the two different options. And then Mr. Keener laid out what the option would be if we were to go with the wood mulch. So I've laid out some pros and cons with both of those, the poured in place and the rubber mulch. What I would add to for the wood mulch would be, some pros would be, obviously it's less costly. It does have some shock absorbency, and those would be the pros. The cons would be, this is an uneven surface, therefore making it not completely ADA compliant because of the uneven surfaces. It does have a tendency to draw insects to the wood mulch. There's weeds that will grow up through there. It does not go without maintenance. So both the rubber mulch and the wood mulch requires someone or staff to go out and rake that rubber mulch and or that wood mulch back into the area on a regular basis. That becomes an issue because of time and other things going on. So then that kind of disintegrates that, and that's how those things get displaced from the area of the playground. There is also a density. There's some density issues, more so with the wood mulch than there is with the rubber mulch. You aren't able to tell exactly the density, which can affect the fall of that. With the rubber mulch, there is also, I'm sorry, excuse me, I keep saying rubber mulch. With the wood mulch, there is also the need to have it refreshed yearly. So in other words, in August, I had the wood mulch for CES replaced. I paid at a cost of $4,400 to have that refreshed. Basically what they're doing there is they're just adding another layer. They try and determine what the density is of the mulch, but they will add another layer on top of that. So that needs to be done yearly. With that, it would also need to be every about 8 years roughly. It kind of needs to be even some of it dug out and refreshed further. It's not, because the wood mulch will disintegrate, and so you have to determine how much of a fall that gives you, and so you have to sometimes dig that out every so many years and then refresh it even more, meaning a thicker layer of the wood mulch would be added into that. So you can see what the differences between the three mulches here. Essentially, the one that, the poured in place is the one that's going to give the more consistent shock. It's going to have smoother accessibility and lower maintenance. We did talk last month about some of the maintenance that is involved with the poured in place. Much of that maintenance, unless there's considerable damage done to the playground, much of that maintenance is something that our crew itself could do after the warranty is over. It's something that our crew can do in the maintenance department. So there's kits that you can buy to repair the poured in place mulch. So that would be that maintenance with that. Obviously, there's going to be higher costs with the poured in place mulch and with the rubber mulch as opposed to the wood mulch. Ultimately, the choice is going to be yours here to make that decision once we have the costs in. These are costs that we have used based on Fidavia's contractor costs and things like that. So once we have the RFP completed, your determination will be to decide between the three of those. I'm just trying to give you some ideas here and some back on this.
At what point will you know if the curbing does need to be replaced?
Well, it was supposed to be surveyed yesterday.
Oh, right, okay.
But that didn't happen. So I'm waiting for them to give me a call, an email back to reschedule that. So I'm hoping that it's going to be within the next few days, maybe. I'm hoping it's going to be this week, but I don't know that yet for sure.
Gotcha. Another question I had, I was going back through the chart with the capital plan with all of the bands. And when I was looking through that one shows that you've budgeted for that, or somebody's budgeted for that $925,000 for the summer playground projects. And so worst case scenario here, if you went with the poured in place and you had to replace the curbing, according to the estimate, is $848. So that's still coming in under
that
what
amount.
that budgeted amount. Am I reading all of that correctly?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure I was looking at that correctly. Does anybody else have any questions for Mrs. James?
Yeah, I do. First off, thank you very much. I know I expressed a lot of concerns last month. I think it was sticker shock mostly, saying the $1 million. That being said, I really appreciate that you showed this side by side, because at this point we're talking about a $360,000 difference between rubber mulch and poured in place. That goes up to about $500,000 if you're doing wood mulch to poured in place. And so in the $360,000 across 3 playgrounds, that's $120,000 per playground. And as I was looking at this, and you're talking about all the additional maintenance that's going to be needed for rubber mulch, so if you have 10 months out of the year times 10 years, that's about $1,200 per month in maintenance, plus whatever the maintenance is for poured in place. So essentially, it's looking like, because of the ongoing maintenance with some of these other options, it does seem like the poured in place is a better option long term. It's obviously a much more costly upfront cost, but one of my other concerns was being doubtful on the ongoing maintenance. I got some clarification about that playground that I was referring to last month, and one thing that was pointed out is, that playground is used a lot more heavily than our playgrounds would be at the elementary schools, because, it's for whatever short recess period, and then there's a break, and then the next recess period and a break, and so on and so on. And that's only Monday through Friday, right, during school hours, versus this other park is very heavily used during the weekend. So, the fact that they had to do significant maintenance after a year or two isn't that surprising, considering they're probably getting a lot more foot traffic. So, yeah, I guess I didn't really have any questions, just comments, so sorry.
Thank you. Anybody else? I thought I saw something over here. Yeah, Mr. Bogomuz.
My only question comes back to, you hinted at the fact that the rubber mulch, not the poured, was not ADA compliant. Is it ADA compliant or
It is
isn't
not.
it?
It is not, because it's a loose surface and it's an uneven surface.
I don't mean to be disrespectful, but I'm going to challenge that a little, because my understanding is that 6 inches of that is what's required and that it is ADA compliant. So are we certain about that?
About the rubber mulch? So
Correct.
my
Because that's not my understanding, and I just want to be sure that it's not misunderstood, and that we're clear that my understanding is that the rubber mulch is ADA compliant.
So it would be ADA compliant in the sense of the fall zones and things like that. Where it doesn't become compliant is where you could not access that with a wheelchair.
Could somebody please verify that for me? I want to be certain, because that's a big part of the decision, and as it may be a little more of an inconvenience, my understanding is that it is ADA compliant. So please check on that
Okay.
and
Yeah,
get back to
I-
us.
I share that question. I mean, we're talking about, and maybe I want, the mulch goes sort of under like the jungle gym and the merry-go-round and those sort of things, right? It doesn't cover the entire playground.
No.
So people in a wheelchair aren't going to be using the things that the mulch is underneath anyway. So how is this an ADA compliance issue?
That's my point. I don't
Yeah.
think it is. But if somebody could just verify that, I don't want to be too prideful to say that I'm right in this. I just want to be certain that, because it was hinted at in your presentation, and that's the part that I want to make sure
And I think I
we're
was
clear
mainly
on.
speaking there regarding, I had found online that it stated that the wood mulch was not ADA compliant.
Yeah, I don't know about wood mulch. I was referring to the rubber mulch. I would not recommend wood mulch. I'm just going to put it out there. We're taking a lot of steps backwards. I love the price tag, but I don't love the wood mulch. I feel like that's definitely taking a step back.
What's the difference though? I mean, at the end of the day, it saves hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, if you check it out and you do a little research, you'll find that 6 inches of rubber is definitely way more protective from a fall than the wood mulch
Well,
would
then we
be.
need to upgrade all of our playgrounds. If it's that dangerous, then we shouldn't have it anymore.
I didn't say it was dangerous. I just said that the rubber mulch is more forgiving on a fall.
Okay. Well, I mean, if that's going to be a reason, Mr. Walgamoo, look, I sound like I'm a broken record. We are not living in a world of endless resources anymore. So we need to make some hard choices. And maybe one of those hard choices is, as Mrs. James and Mr. Walgamoo said, taking a step back to a much cheaper product that is still perfectly safe. And if it's not perfectly safe, then we should be replacing it everywhere it exists in this district. I mean, because right now, frankly, I think we're talking out of both sides of our mouth. We're
Mr.
saying, this isn't as safe, it's not as good, we shouldn't use it, but we still do use it. We use it at multiple buildings.
Actually, it's
So-
only at Centerville at this point.
I was going to ask how many other playgrounds have that, was going to be my question.
Centerville Elementary has it.
Okay.
And
Then I think we need to replace it. It's dangerous, right? It's not ADA compliant. Let's get rid of it there too.
well, that's what I was working towards.
My son would agree with you, Mr. Keener, because he can't play on the wood mulch playground when there's bees in it. But that would be spending more money.
So a question I have an additional question, related to the rubber mulch and the ones that were replacing it. How long has it been since we initially, what life have we gotten out of the rubber mulch thus far?
This is the rubber mulch that's there. It was at the time of the build, since the time of the build. So we're talking 12, 13 years depending on which building you're talking about.
I guess I could get behind the middle of the road on this. I do think it is a big price tag, and I could get behind maybe sticking with what we currently have rather than going with the poured, even though obviously I'd love the Cadillac over the Yugo, but for those of you that are older and remember the Yugo. I'd rather have the Cadillac, but I do think that the rubber mulch would suffice, which is what we currently have as well. So for what it's worth, I would like to know if there is an ADA compliance issue, which I hadn't thought about, but your presentation hinted at. I need to know for certain.
Yeah, and it was more so, I read that definitely for the wood mulch, but I will double check it on the rubber mulch.
What is the thickness that is currently being proposed with the rubber mulch?
I don't know that off the
would-
top of my
yeah,
head. Well, oh, no, I'm sorry.
Because my gut feel is that it's going to be less than 6 inches.
10.
It is 10, okay, never
Yeah.
mind. Yeah,
Rub-
I was
Yeah,
thinking.
it's 10.
10 for the rubber, okay.
Yeah.
Have we had to top off the rubber mulch over the last 13, 14 years?
We did at East Petersburg Elementary, we did very early on. I was not in my position, but when we had to do that, but I was told that very early on we had to do that at that playground.
Yeah, I guess my thought is, in order to do a better apples to apples is being able to get the full maintenance cost over a 10-year period. Obviously, that's a lot of extra work, so I'm not saying that I need that to be able to make a decision, but I think some people may appreciate having that information to be able to say, look, yeah, going back to my cost analysis of the maintenance, is it going to be $1,200 a month to do added cost for the rubber pour in place, and do we save that at least that much in maintenance cost for the rubber mulch, or come close to make it more palatable to say, that way you're comparing more of a Mustang to the Cadillac versus the Yugo.
And another point of clarification, when we were talking about where the mulch is, it isn't just under the swing, it's in the
No,
entire area where
right,
all of the
it does
equipment is.
extend, yes, it does extend around the equipment. You have to have certain fall zones
Right.
at a playground, so it does extend around the equipment,
Yeah,
yes.
and all that equipment is in one large area.
One large area, yes.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? All right, thank you for that presentation. I think you also have something on the public school facility improvement grants?
Yes, so I just wanted to make all of you aware that the state is offering another grant at this point. It's the DCED grant that if you recall, we used that, or we received a grant when we did the roofs on the LPC and LMS. So we are applying for a grant again. We're working on that in conjunction with Fidavia and Moore Engineering. We would be looking at using that grant at our Landisville Middle School. The stipulations on this grant are it can be used for buildings and grounds type things. So we would be looking to use that for Landisville Middle School for the HVAC.
Can we use it for the pouring place?
No, I don't think it's available for that.
And so there will be a resolution to do that at the March 10th meeting for the DCD. So that's due by the 13th.
The 13th, yeah.
Very good. Any further questions? All right, I'll turn the meeting over to Mr. Best for the finance portion.
Thank you. First off is the expenditure review. Mrs. Hall has a presentation.
Okay, so last month I presented the preliminary revenue overview. Tonight is the preliminary expenditure overview. We've spent a good amount of time just getting it in the system, rolling it up, and now being able to report where our starting point is. As you are aware, we come in with a number in the beginning, and then we continue to work through it and review it over and over the next couple months before we have a final review. So this is just the first look at where we are, just to give you an idea of our starting point. But I'll start with the governor's budget address that was a few weeks back. His proposed state budget for 26-27 includes following, that's up there. $50 million for basic ed funding, 141 is the proposed increase for Hempfield. $50 million for special ed, 105 of that would be for Hempfield. The adequacy funds, the amount that we got this year in adequacy would roll into the Ready to Learn base, and they're proposing another $680,000 in additional funds. 125 for the school facilities grants that Kim just talked about, and then 100 million for PCCD. As you know, we don't budget any of these. The only thing I did budget, which I mentioned in the revenue presentation, was the adequacy rolling into the Ready to Learn base, which they said would happen. I didn't budget additional adequacy or basic ed or special ed at this point. Next slide. So just to give you an idea of where we are currently, we are sitting at around a $5.8 million deficit with no increase to taxes and based upon the preliminary numbers we have today. That also that includes all of our expenses as well as millage built-in for borrowing for the high school project.
Mrs. Hall?
Yes.
So if make sure I'm understanding you.
Sure.
If the governor gets everything that he's asking for, we get about another $900,000.
Yes.
So in that sort of ideal state funding world, the deficit becomes 4.9 million before we start increasing local taxes.
Correct.
Okay.
And based upon the Act 1 index, the most that we can increase is 4.1, which is about 4 million in additional local revenue.
Understood. Thank you.
Yep. Move to the next slide. So for the 26-27 budget, our primary cost drivers are increases to salaries and benefits, which is every year. We did see another jump in our medical expenses of 13.5%. That's after 15 last year, so we're hoping that this will maybe level out again because it is sort of cyclical. We have $1.57 million for additional millage build-in for the high school project as outlined in our bond schedule from Raymond James. And then we're seeing about a $2.2 million increase to special education services. Next slide. So just to break it down, and I'll explain the position vacancies. So you can see all the categories where we have our expenditures kind of lumped into. Historically, we've been under budgeted in special ed. We have worked really hard in the last year or so to work with the new director of special ed to get those numbers more accurate. So we are not needing to make up that difference. How we've made up the difference in past years is with the vacancies that we've had in staffing. Not meaning we've written positions, but positions will sit vacant because we either have a big gap between when someone leaves and someone comes on. We have positions that are very difficult to fill, such as paraprofessionals, which we can't always be fully staffed. Custodians is another one. So we have looked historically over the past 4 or so years where we've done position-based budgeting, and we see that between salary and benefits, we're always about $1.5 million short. So given that we are now budgeting accurately in special ed, we're putting that placeholder in because it's a real savings that we get year over year over year. And I have every reason to believe that we will see that again. Unless something changes drastically, we will monitor it, but that's something where I think we are going to see a savings. So that I put that in there just to have, just so you understand all the cards on the table, what that looks like. So the big jump is in benefits, mostly due to medical. But every time you have a salary increase, your PCERS raises as well, so that contributes to the benefit increase. Our transportation increase is relatively small. It's only contracted services. We did not purchase any vehicles this year. Tuition, the decrease between the actual and the budgets is that we move special ed tuition to special ed, where it used to all sit in one bucket. And our debt service is going to increase based upon the projected borrowing. It's going to increase by about $4 million in the next budget year. So that millage build-in that we've been planning, most of it will go there, and the remainder will go to cap reserve as it has been. Any questions on this slide? It's a lot of information. Okay. All right, we can move on. So that's the pie chart that we show of where the bulk of our expenditures are. And it's always, as most school districts, about 70% for wages and benefits. Then we have our other expenses. Our special ed is increasing, as well as our debt service will continue to increase until we hit our max in debt service payments, about $18 million, which phases in a couple more years. Next slide. This is the Act 1 index forecast. I had updated the projected adjusted index in the last presentation, and I've added on here. I've left in 24, 25, and 25, 26, as they were our first years of millage build-in. And this is the full complement because it goes through 30, 31, and then after that, we aren't building in for debt service specifically. So if I take away the millage from the rest of the expenses, it leaves 4.34 to balance the budget after the 1.6, which leaves us a little short, as I mentioned in the first slide. So we're looking at, we need to make some changes to close that gap. And that's what we'll be working on in the coming months. If you want to go to the next one, next steps. So we'll be back at the end of March with an update. The leadership team, the administration will sit and go through the budget in great detail, and just to make sure that everything is accurate and there's nowhere, if we'll try to identify where there could be savings. So we obviously will always do that. We'll do that, and then we'll continue to work on that through April. We'll get updated information from the county for assessments, so we'll know a little better what the revenue projections are going to be. The May board meeting will adopt the resolution to display and advertise the final budget, and then we will look to adopt the budget at the first June board meeting, which gives us the second meeting should anything be delayed. Any questions?
I don't have any questions, but the unpopular comment that I've had before, that for those of you that have been around the board table or in the audience, I still go back to the fact that I believe there are substantial opportunities, especially at the high school, with classroom sizes and how many offerings we have. We are very inefficient there, and I know that that's not popular to say, but as you can see, our largest expense is salaries and benefits. If you really, truly, fundamentally want to make a difference in ongoing costs, then we need to look at how we're running those classes. And again, I go back to the fact that I know we start with a class size. We're not going to run unless there's 10. But what happens is we have a drop-add period, and before you know it, you're down to 5. That is very, very inefficient. And I would suggest that if the administration wants to fundamentally make a difference long-term, you need to look at the offerings and how many students are in each class. It is not efficient or effective to run a classroom with 5, 10 students, especially when you have classes that run at 17 that hold 30, because you're not consolidating them, and it requires a lot of additional resources. It requires a lot of additional personnel to offer all those classes. And so rather than looking at how many pencils we have in each classroom and pens and cut the little things, let's look at something that fundamentally makes a difference year over year and actually provides what I would call a more concentrated effort when it comes to education, rather than being distracted by so many offerings.
Any other comments or questions? Mr. Keener.
Thank you, Mr. Best. Mrs. Hall, and I want to go back to Mr. Graham, if you can pull the Act 1 forecast up again. Thank you. So, and this is my favorite chart that you show us, and everyone knows that, right? But because it really crystallizes where we are. The increase to balance the budget, 4.34%, is that, and then we look out in the years where that column is blank. That column's not going to be blank next year at this time, is it?
It is not.
Right, okay. So, right now, we're 1.85% in the hole. Understanding that you're going to do some pencil sharpening, and that number might go down a little bit. But it's not going to go to 0, and it's certainly not going to go positive, probably, at this point.
Well, I mean, to submit it to the state, we do need to balance it. So it has to either be 0 or it's coming from fund balance, which I don't recommend, but
by withdrawing from our
Yeah,
savings.
I'm not sure we're there to
Yeah.
make that kind of statement yet, but yes.
But once that number gets plugged into the blank in the future years, the taxing authority remaining, if we have a 4%, let's say you get that down to 3.5 or 4%, the deficit is gonna increase every year in this projection, right? Please tell me I'm wrong.
I mean,
Yeah.
if it's 4% every year, you're right.
Yeah.
I can't tell you what it's going to be in those other 4 years.
Well, the actual index is gonna probably go down.
That's the
at the
projection
state
from the
level,
IFO, yeah.
I mean, if you look at the increase to balance budget in 24, 25, and 25, 26, I mean, essentially take those numbers and, extrapolate those through the rest.
Right, but Mr.
Basically,
Best,
if we have a year like the last 2 years,
Right.
we'll be a little more comfortable than if we have more years like this year where we need 4% to balance the budget versus 2.5. I mean,
Right, but we're still adding millage in. There's still gonna be more added millage for debt service.
correct. So, I mean, she's got that taken into account. So the bottom line, really what we have to look at is the red numbers at the bottom,
exactly.
right? So if our budget next year to balance, the adjusted is 3.7, and we continue to say we're gonna do 1.59, then next year, if our budget increase, or to balance the budget, if it's more than 2.11%,
Right.
then that's where we have to start being concerned and starting to cut or look at ways to reduce our increases.
Right, and the faculty contract takes up 1.8, 1.9% of that. So already we're down to 30 basis points for everything else. Full-day kindergarten is gonna be $1.5 million. We can't afford full-day kindergarten at that point. I mean, I sound like a broken record, but this financial picture gets gloomier and gloomier every time we see one of these presentations. And we've got to get out in front of it, or we're gonna be in a real uncomfortable place 2 or 3 years from now.
Agreed. Any other comments or concerns?
Underscoring the importance of advocating at the state level for continued funding as well, not just, I mean, I heard the word cut, but that there's other things we can do as school board members for Hempfield, that continues as well.
Mrs. Eshelman, Matt, I agree, but that money comes from somewhere too, okay? The state is not the federal government. It can't print money.
Understood, but,
So,
I mean,
yeah.
the fact is there's a bigger tax base when you look at the state as a whole and all the various ways they have to tax versus, we're limited to local, real estate tax and earned income tax and transfer tax, right? So we have very, very limited opportunities to earn revenue, whereas the state has multiple places they can go. So advocating for them to, do their job and not continue to pull out of the rainy day fund, they need to find new places to get revenue.
We can always expand gambling and legalize marijuana. Right?
Or extraction taxes, increased sales tax. There's tons of
Right, yeah.
different things that we're not state legislators. We can't make that decision, but we need to go and advocate to, I actually just got a letter from Representative Miller saying, hey, come to this, breakfast to come talk about stuff. Yeah, we need to go and we need to tell them, look, your districts are hurting.
I'm disappointed that boards, and we're not alone, focus primarily most of their efforts on the revenue. I really believe that our benefits and our opportunities are in the expense side. We can advocate, we can go after those dollars, that's what everyone wants. More money, just give us more money. The bottom line is you don't need more money to provide a high-quality education. And when I look at the district, I see plenty of inefficiencies, and I've mentioned one of them. We need to be better at our expenses. If we're better at our expenses, we won't be chasing the almighty dollar everywhere we go, and what we get from the state and the federal government and our tax base will be more than sufficient. I firmly believe that. We have a stronger tax base than most districts. To have this conversation tells me one thing: we're not managing our dollars wisely on a day-to-day basis. and I don't mean that unkindly, but we have a ton of opportunity to save what I believe millions of dollars and provide a high-level education. And I will still go back to liking it to healthcare. If you go to some other countries, they give better healthcare with better outcomes at half of what it costs per capita in the United States.
So what I just want to be clear in what you are proposing is the savings, because I hear you talk about efficiencies and class sizes, but I just want to be transparent that that means cutting staff, correct?
It can or it can't. And if you do it by attrition and you're willing to move classes and options off the table, you can do it effectively. If this board decides and this administration decides to wait, you will, and eventually, if you keep looking at a financial picture like that, and you run out of chasing dollars, you will have to make hard decisions. I don't believe this board and this district are there yet, or this administration. I believe if fundamental changes are made today, it can be done by attrition and done in the right way.
I mean, it's my understanding that we have not been replacing many positions from retirement, that we've been working in that.
A handful, I don't know that I would call it many, but.
Part of the problem is, so again, this is anecdotal evidence, but several years ago, a science teacher retired, and I was talking to one of the existing science teachers who's still there, and he said essentially because that teacher was not replaced and because none of the other faculty are certified in those specific classes, several sections of a class had to be cut. So I mean, yes, attrition is nice, but you got to be able to have enough people certified in those other subjects to be able to maintain, the minimum class offerings.
I'm going to put the skunk on the table. Our block scheduling doesn't help us at all. I've talked to everybody around this table about it. I've talked to the administration about it. I believe we're very inefficient because of some of the structure that we have. And we need to make what I would call some tough decisions that require some courage to make some fundamental changes that will in long term serve this district well after I'm here.
Mr. Keener.
Thank you, Mr. Bass. I mean, look, we sit around this table and we speak in hyperbola. I do it, Mr. Walgamuth does it. We're all guilty of it, okay? I mean, that's part of what we do. At the end of the day, we're not going to solve this problem solely cutting staff. We're not going to solve this problem solely by not doing full-day kindergarten. We're not going to solve this problem by not addressing what are very real needs at the high school, okay? What we need to do is we need to be better at saying no and better at looking at these. Every year we get a dozen small requests. And it's like, oh, 100,000 here, 500,000 here, 200,000 here. And it's like, oh, we're Hempfield, we can afford that. Our budget's $160 million a year. But that stuff adds up. And I'm sorry, we just had a 20-minute discussion about what type of mulch to put in a playground. That $400,000 adds up. I don't think we should be having a discussion between should it be Cadillac mulch or the Yugo mulch. If we need something fresh there, let's stop using loaded language like it's not ADA compliant, it's dangerous, it's this, it's that. Let's say we have an opportunity to save $400,000 by using something that is perfectly safe, has worked for decades, and in fact continues to work just fine at several of our schools. And I'm not just picking on Mrs. James. The mulch is one example. We're the hottest new technology. We have someone comes and says, hey, we have this new program that we need. Let's spend a couple $100,000 on that. Let's spend money on this. Let's stop with all the nibbling that we do. If we stop nibbling and we make some tough choices around staffing, around curriculum, around facilities, we can solve this problem. But we can't solve this problem if we continue to give in to what feels good in the moment.
One comment that I think, or that I've had for a while is I feel like we need to, I mean, to your point, it does feel like things keep coming up. And while they may be part of the budget, like I completely forgot, you know, thank you, Mrs. Brady, for bringing up, like this was already part of the facility plan in stage 2, or I think stage 2. So like the fact that it was already part of the plan is good to be reminded of every time. But I also agree that sometimes, like, okay, we keep getting asked for these little things, and without us being able to look at everything holistically, I think is something that it would be really nice to be able to start making those plans and being like, all right, let's do full-day kindergarten. Well, we can't do it this year. All right, well, what's it going to take to get it there? Is that going to be in the 29 school year, the 30, you know, what? So we actually have a plan for when things are going to be done. Any other comments, questions? All right, moving on, district tax collection services.
Okay. So we recently have a vacancy for our tax collector who has accepted another position within the district. Based on that, it was time to look at some other options. The Lancaster County Tax Collection Bureau has started collecting taxes for other school districts a couple years back. They are up to 8 districts now, so we reached out to them to get some information on whether they could and how much it would cost to take on Hempfield. Next slide. So we have a comparison of what the cost will be through the Lancaster County Tax Collection Bureau annually, as opposed to if we were to replace our tax collector with a full-time employment position. And the savings is $63,000 annually. Now, I will say, I think, I don't know if you have questions about it, I think this one is a no-brainer. There's a lot of reasons. One, they have the expertise. Finding someone for this position last time was incredibly difficult. 2, they've got multiple people who do it, so when that person's on vacation, there are backups. They have a very robust website which allows people to make payments and get receipts and things of that nature, which we don't have and we're not going to be investing in. So we think it's a great option. I said they have 8 districts already. We're looking at going on for July 1, as is Donegal. So they will have most of the county within this year. From that piece, I don't know if you have questions about that, and we'll talk about the savings. Do you have questions first about the county?
I don't have a question, but I think, like you said, it appears to be a no-brainer. It sounds like an excellent choice and a great way to save a significant dollars.
Right. So I will say, while it is $63,000 in savings, the tax collector in the off-season does do other things for the business office. So we would like to use at least a portion of this to hire a part-time person to kind of pick up some of the overflow, since we'll be down a full body. So it does help out with a backup with accounts payable, because we have a large volume of payments that are being made, and some of the other functions. So we will go above that, but we think that's a better way to utilize those funds.
And that's probably a role that's easier to fill, correct?
Yes, someone who's
A
just a
part-time,
general
yeah.
utility, yeah. Tax collector proved very, very difficult. And so when they came on with this, I thought, if this ever opens again, this is the route that I would like to go. And to me, it just makes a ton of sense, and people have had really good experience having them do it. I didn't want to be first, but we'll be 9th, so I think we're good. So that contract is on the contracts list for tonight for approval at the March meeting.
Can I ask a quick question? Or will there be like sufficient communication to, you know, our local area that it's changing to? I'm just thinking of people who may be used to coming specifically to our tax collector, even having a relationship of some sort, and, you know, the savings are there, but I just want that ability to continue and actually to help people if we go with another place.
Yeah, I think there actually are better staff to do it. Now, they're not physically in this building, of course, but there is more people to answer questions and to interact with.
And we'll be able to foster that connection, I guess is what I'm saying.
Which is why I didn't want to be first.
Yeah,
So.
great, thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Briefly, it's, first of all, I think this is probably a real good idea. They're already doing our earned income tax.
They do.
Right? And my only, and this is a great example of a way we can save some money. My only concern is, their service does not seem, their customer service seems suspect to me. I know I've had to call them a couple times with questions about, like, my personal tax situation. It's hard to get a person on the phone. They're not nearly as responsive as Mrs. Rambler was. So can we assure that they're going to provide our residents with the same level of customer service that they've become accustomed to through our own district tax collectors?
So no one's going to rival Sharon Rambler. I'm just going
Pardon
to,
me?
no one is going to rival Sharon Rambler's customer service. It's just
Well,
not going to
but
happen.
that should be the goal, right? They might
Well-
fall a little bit short, and
Right.
she is a singular,
Well-
singular expert, but
We went through many interviews when we replaced her when she retired 2 years ago, which was very difficult. I can tell you that my colleagues who have gone to the county have had really good experience with it, that they're not receiving a lot of complaints, and which is why more districts are going on. They're bringing on another full-time person because we are coming on, so they will have the staff for that as well.
Any other questions? All right, moving on. Contracts coming up for approval next month. 2 of them for CDW, more for some E-rate equipment. Lancaster County CTC, Lancaster County Tax Collection Bureau, IU13, Market Street Sports Group, News Story, and Pennsylvania Counseling Services. Any questions about any of those items from anyone?
I have a question, but I didn't really have a chance to offer this at any other point. I attended the Student Assistance Program Conference 2 weeks ago, and just wanted to say what an amazing program it is that we provide our students. I went for my job, but I saw lots of Hempfield folks there learning, and just really glad that we get to be a part of that method of assisting students.
I guess I have a question, Mrs. Hall. I just remembered it. When I was reading it, it says 1350 hours per school year or 5 days per week. Was that really meant to be 5 days per month instead?
I'm sorry, what are we? looking at?
Sorry, the SAP contract.
Oh, that's yours.
No, they are in 5 days a week, so they rotate between our school. The consultants rotate between the schools.
Okay. I'm assuming it's not 5 days a week, 8 hours per day, though?
Correct.
Okay.
I'm not sure what the hours are.
Yeah,
But I can
it just
give-
seemed
I can
like,
get more information.
yeah, 1350 per year would be like only about 4 hours a day. So,
Yeah.
okay. Any other questions or comments about any of the contracts? All right. Scheduled upcoming meetings. Next month, we have our regular meeting and education policy, personnel and legal, and on the 10th, and on March 24th, regular meeting, Buildings and Grounds Finance Committee. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Williams and Mrs. Brady. In favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, we are adjourned.